In the quiet hours of the night, across rivers and lakes in the heartland and cities of America, a pattern began to emerge that sent shivers through communities and sparked a wave of speculation that would ripple for decades. Over the span of several years, at least 40 young men, predominantly white, college-aged, and full of promise, were discovered lifeless, their bodies recovered from dark, cold waters. These tragic events occurred in 11 different states, often after a night out, laughter echoing from bars and college campuses, only to end in silence. But what truly caught the attention of investigators and the public alike was a recurring, unsettling detail. The presence, near several of these sites, of a crudely drawn smiley face, scrawled onto walls, bridges, or underpasses, grinning eerily at the scene of each loss. This chilling coincidence gave rise to one of the most persistent and controversial theories in recent American crime lore, the so-called Smiley Face murder theory. The notion that these deaths were not isolated tragedies, but rather intentional killings, orchestrated by a shadowy network or individual, sent a wave of fear and fascination through the nation. The smiley face, a symbol usually associated with happiness and innocence, here became a macabre calling card, a sinister signature marking the end of young lives. The theory first gained traction when two retired New York City detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, teamed up with Dr. Lee Gilbertson, a criminal justice professor. Together, they meticulously pored over the details of these cases, mapping out dates, locations, and victim profiles. What they found was unsettling, a pattern of disappearances and deaths, all sharing haunting similarities. The victims were young men, many celebrated athletes or students, well-liked and brimming with potential. Most had been drinking with friends at a bar or party before vanishing into the night. Days, sometimes weeks, later, their bodies would be found in nearby rivers or lakes. And near the recovery sites, the same symbol, a crudely painted smiley face, would be discovered, as if mocking the tragedy that unfolded. Gannon and Duarte, frustrated by what they saw as an official reluctance to connect the dots, began to suspect a coordinated effort at play, a smiley face gang, as they termed it. To them, the similarities were too striking, the smiley faces too deliberate, for these deaths to be mere accidents. They argued that the victims, disoriented from alcohol and perhaps targeted for their vulnerability, were murdered and then disposed of in water to disguise the evidence. In their view, the smiley faces served as a taunt, a chilling confirmation that these were not unrelated drownings, but intentional acts of violence. However, as the theory gained media attention and public interest, it also drew skepticism from law enforcement and forensic experts across the country. The FBI, after reviewing the cases, stated unequivocally that there was no evidence to support the existence of a serial killer or gang targeting these young men. To the Bureau and many local police departments, the deaths were tragic but accidental, the result of alcohol-impaired judgment and the perils of rivers and lakes, especially at night. The smiley faces, they argued, were common forms of graffiti, found in countless places across America, and not necessarily linked to the crimes. Critics pointed to the inconsistent appearance of the smiley faces, some hastily drawn, others nearly faded, differing in style and size. There was no clear, consistent modus operandi, no physical evidence tying the cases together. Many of the victims were last seen heavily intoxicated, and the locations where their bodies were found were known to be dangerous, particularly for someone under the influence. The absence of a clear motive also troubled investigators. Why would a killer or group target young men in this manner, leaving behind such an ambiguous symbol? Despite these objections, the theory captured the imagination of the public. Families of victims, desperate for answers, found solace or at least purpose in the idea that their loved ones had not simply fallen prey to misadventure, but had been marked by something darker, more intentional. The smiley face, now stripped of its innocent connotations, became a symbol of unanswered questions and unresolved grief. To understand the allure and controversy of the smiley face murder theory, one must look beyond the crime scenes and consider the broader currents of fear and uncertainty that run through communities. In many ways, the theory is a reflection of our collective anxieties, a fear that danger lurks not just in shadows, but in the very fabric of our everyday lives, masquerading as coincidence or accident. The smiley face, with its simple, childlike form, becomes a mask, something that hides true intentions, that mocks our search for meaning amid chaos. The debate over these deaths touches on deep questions about chance, intention, and the ways in which we try to impose order on tragedy. For the detectives who advanced the theory, the pattern was unmistakable, a sign of evil hiding in plain sight. For others, including seasoned investigators and forensic pathologists, these were stories of heartbreak. Yes, but also of the dangers inherent in certain behaviors and environments, reminders of how quickly joy can turn to sorrow when caution is cast aside. But perhaps the most haunting aspect of the smiley face theory is not the question of whether it is true, but what it reveals about our need for answers. When faced with unexplained loss, we search for patterns, for explanations that can make sense of the senseless. We look for signs, even in something as innocuous as a spray-painted face, because to do otherwise feels like surrendering to the void. As the years passed and more cases were added to the growing list, the theory continued to evolve. Online forums buzzed with speculation, amateur sleuths mapped connections, and true crime enthusiasts dissected every detail. Documentaries and news specials kept the theory alive in the public consciousness, each new incident reigniting debate. For some, the theory became a cautionary tale about the dangers of nightlife and alcohol. Universities and communities launched public awareness campaigns, urging students to look out for one another, to avoid walking alone at night, especially near bodies of water. The smiley face, once a symbol of fun, now served as a grim warning, a reminder of the risks that can accompany even the most innocent of celebrations. Yet the theory also raises important questions about the nature of evidence and the limits of investigation. In the absence of clear forensic links, fingerprints, DNA, or confessions, how much weight should be given to patterns that may be the product of chance? Can coincidence masquerade as conspiracy, especially when grief and fear are at play? The tension between the desire for certainty and the reality of ambiguity is at the heart of the smiley face mystery. As of today, the official stance remains unchanged. Law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, maintain that the deaths are unrelated, tragic accidents, heartbreaking, but not the work of a coordinated killer or group. The smiley faces, they argue, are a red herring, a symbol so ubiquitous that it cannot reasonably be linked to each case. Without concrete evidence, a suspect, a confession, or a proven connection, any theory remains by necessity unproven. Still, the story endures, fueled by the unresolved grief of families, the determination of investigators who refuse to let go, and a public fascinated by the idea that evil might wear a smiling mask. The smiley face theory is a testament to the power of narrative, to our need for stories that explain the inexplicable, that transform loss into something that can be named, if not understood. In the end, what remains are the lives lost and the questions left behind. Each young man who vanished into the night is more than a footnote in a theory. He is a son, a friend, a dream unrealized. The smiley face, whether a clue or a coincidence, stands as a marker of our collective uncertainty, a symbol of the mysteries that still haunt the dark corners of our world. For the families, the pain is compounded by the lack of answers. Every cold case is a wound that refuses to heal, every unproven theory a double-edged sword, offering hope of resolution, but also the risk of further confusion and disappointment. Yet, they persist, seeking truth wherever it may be found, refusing to let their loved ones become mere statistics. For investigators, the challenge is to balance open-mindedness with rigor, to follow the evidence wherever it leads, but also to resist the allure of patterns that may not exist. The smiley face, in this sense, is a test, a reminder that not all mysteries have neat solutions, that sometimes the hardest answer to accept is the simplest one. For the public, the story is a mirror, reflecting our fears and our fascination with the unknown. It is a tale that warns and intrigues in equal measure, a reminder of how quickly the ordinary can become extraordinary, how easily the line between accident and intention can blur. In the end, the smiley face murder theory is less about the symbol itself and more about the human need for meaning. It is about the ways we try to make sense of loss, the stories we tell to explain what we cannot know. Whether or not there was ever a gang, a killer, or a plan behind the drownings, the theory endures because it speaks to something deeper, the need to find patterns in the chaos of life, to draw connections where none may exist, to believe that even in the darkest moments, there is a reason, a story, a truth waiting to be uncovered. As long as there are questions, as long as there is grief that seeks understanding, the smiley face will linger at the edges of our consciousness, a symbol of mystery, of fear, and of the enduring search for answers. The rivers and lakes will continue to flow, silent witnesses to lives lost and stories untold. As communities remember, investigators persist, and the debate goes on. In the quiet aftermath, after the headlines have faded and the speculation has died down, what remains is the need to remember the faces, the stories, the lives behind the theory. The smiley face, for all its ambiguity, is a reminder that every tragedy leaves a mark, that every unanswered question is a call to keep searching, to keep hoping, to keep asking why.